Hello! Hello, and welcome back to another video. My name is Catherine Vitug, and today I want to talk about what a spiritual awakening is. I'm partly inspired by Sorelle Amour. She's a YouTuber and a businesswoman, and she's really cool. Check her out if you don't know who she is. I'll put her handle down below. But she did a video where she was kind of beating herself up because she didn't know if she had just Googled what she was going through, she would have found out much earlier that she was having a spiritual awakening. And when she did end up finally just sitting down and Googling it and asking, what the hell am I going through? It made so much sense. She said she found a YouTube video and the lady just mapped it out and was like, these are the 6 stages. If I can find that video, I will link that as well. So I thought it'd be fun. I have talked about this with a lot of clients and with a lot of friends and family, and it is, it's just a really cool topic. I'm fascinated by it. I love listening to other people's, spiritual awakenings. That might sound woo-woo to you, but whatever. If you know, you know. If you haven't experienced one, you're like, this is silly, this is stupid. But if you have, you're just like, please explain what's happening to me. And the word, the symptoms and everything will just really resonate with you, and you'll just feel it. You'll know that's what you're going through. So so I was inspired and I sat down and I wanted to think of my own, what I would classify the stages of a spiritual awakening to be, and just in general, what is one? So let's start there. What is a spiritual awakening? For me, there's many different classifications. It's, when you can find God, or, when you can, you can look at it very secularly, like when you woke up from the Matrix, all that kind of stuff. But for me, it's when you finally just come home to who you truly are. And it's when you sit down and you ask yourself life's big questions, right? The big questions are, who am I? What do I believe in? Do I believe in God? What does that look like? How do I communicate with the universe? What do I value? What do I want? What does happiness truly look like to me? Not just what I've been told it is. What does success truly look like to me? Not just what I'm sold, that it is. So this is the spiritual awakening for me. This isn't just you just wake up and boom, you're awake. It can be a process. For some people, it can be very, very quick, boom, I'm awake. But for others, it can be a process. And the lines, get a little murky. So for me, this was probably around 20 years old, probably. But it had been building. I needed the space to finally be myself. So when I went to college, I was finally alone enough and on my own enough where my heart started, taking the lead, and I wasn't just being shuttled from one thing to the next, which is what happens when you're growing up, right? And you're in school, and then you're in after school things, and you're trying to get into college, and blah, 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 and there's home drama and friend drama, and you're trying to figure out what you're doing with your life. There's so much distraction growing up that we don't often have the space and the stillness to delve inwards. So for me, the second I was able to kind of be on my own terms is when it all just flooded in. It's like my spirit had been wanting to communicate with me for so long, and I finally, it just flooded in when it had the chance. So a spiritual awakening is when you are fully coming home to yourself. You see yourself as you truly are. It makes me think of a couple things. There's a quote, and I first read this in my spiritual awakening, and it was in the book Eat, Pray, Love. And she becomes obsessed with this quote, and it says, God dwells within you as you. And it's just such a perfect reminder to stop the ego self-projection of whatever you think spirituality is, whatever you think godliness is, and just to go, no, I was made by God to be who I am, and yes, I have things I need to work on, but I'm supposed to be me. I'm not supposed to be, in the book, Elizabeth Gilbert is very chatty and very friendly, and she's like, I'm not supposed to be this quiet little spiritual mouse, at the ashram. I'm supposed to be me. I'm supposed to be friendly. So I love that quote. And also in my world religions class that I took at around that same time, he said that a classification of godliness in Eastern philosophy, I think it was Hinduism that we were learning about, the way to become godlike is to become fully self-aware, like to see yourself exactly as you are. That is what it is to be godlike. And this is just such a cool thing to me, because it's truly like, the eye cannot see itself. Like, we are so immersed in our everyday life. We don't have objectivity when it comes to ourselves. We can see everything else really well, but we can't even truly see ourselves, right? Like, a reflection is still a reflection. It's not truth, right? The mirror could be distorted. The lighting could be off. It could be dark. So godliness is such a level of evolution that you actually see yourself for who you truly are, not anyone's projections or any kind of image or role that you're playing. It's like truly who you are. And the interesting thing about that is the more that you can see yourself, the more that you can see the world around you, because it's like you'll notice it's a mirror. And so like the more you understand yourself, the more you understand others, the more you understand nature, the more you understand yourself. Like, it just keeps going back and forth. In the book Siddhartha, he gazes at this river and he learns so much about himself just from observing the river, right? Because, as above, so below. Like, you keep seeing these mirror images reflecting. So that's to me a spiritual awakening. And of course there's like levels to this, right? The top level would be like enlightenment, nirvana, sainthood, whatever you want to look at it, being a bodhisattva. Definitely not there yet, but there are levels to it. There seems to be this idea that there are stages to a spiritual awakening. And I would agree with this. And of course, with the caveat being some people could move like that. Some people could, almost get stuck in a stage for too long. But there does seem to be this general progression to this. The first stage is the catalyst. Usually something in your life is happening that is finally saying, go into your heart space, right? Like, go meet God, go meet yourself. You need to take a time out and you need to answer these questions. Who are you? What do you want? So what I have found is that the catalyst for this growth can be positive, or it can be negative, or in some cases it can kind of be neutral. And I'll give you some examples. So a positive influence could be you're living your life and you fall in love. And this person is just so inspiring to your growth that, they prompt this shift for you. It could be that you take a trip, in Eat, Pray, Love, it was her traveling that really was inspiring, all of these shifts to occur and all of this growth. It could also be a negative catalyst, and this could look like getting sick, right? A lot of people that have cured really serious illnesses through, healing and detoxification, they often say, I am so thankful that I got sick because it made me stop. It made me, just really sit everything down and say, what's important? What do I need to focus on? It's sad because sometimes, like my husband, for example, he knew someone that was terminally ill, and they kind of mentioned what I thought was important wasn't important. What I worked so hard for, at the end of the day, what do I have for it? So you can see this a lot of times with these negative influences, and I'll say negative with air quotes because again, it's if it negative, if it pushes you to actually find yourself and find your connection to God and others and nature and your soul purpose, maybe not, right? God works in mysterious ways. So maybe that heartbreak, maybe that loss of job, maybe that loss of income, or that shift or that change, or that thing that really put you in a place that you thought you might not come up from. Maybe it happened for a reason, because for a lot of people, it's what they need to finally stop and have a spiritual awakening, which is pretty cool. And then for some people, there does seem to be a neutral style of catalyst, and that just seems to be stillness. Like for me, for example, there wasn't anything in particular that was pushing me. It just was, I just needed to sit still for a little bit. I just needed to be on my own. So yeah, that can be like a neutral catalyst, if you will. And you do hear about these really weird cases where someone's just, they literally just wake up and have this spontaneous like awakening, and that's pretty cool. But I find that it's typically not the majority of the time. Usually life will throw you a curveball, positive or negative, so that you can initiate this growth cycle. So yeah, so we have our catalyst that says, hey, you need to get in touch, you need to get connected. And then the step that comes or the stage that comes after that is usually, it's like this feeling of just such deep connection and joy. It feels like your soul is kind of bursting outwards, because you usually in your spiritual awakening realize that you are in fact connected. You're connected to other people, you're connected to nature, you're connected to everything around you. So it can be a very unifying, blissful kind of, cloud nine experience. You feel a oneness with God. You feel like you can communicate with the universe. You feel a deep and profound love for yourself and everything around you. You look at nature and you just want to like cry and marvel at it, because you realize the perfection, right? It's just this heightened, deep, innate love and profound connection to everything around you, because that's what you're realizing in your spiritual awakening, that you are in fact connected to everything. And so this is by far like the biggest high you can ever have in your life. I know when I was having my awakening, I remember one time journaling was something I used to use to initiate growth. And I remember one time I was journaling and it just like started coming out, like I was saying I love myself for really the first time, and I was really feeling it, and it bubbled up like such an overwhelming, deep, godly, profound love for myself that I felt like overwhelmed, like I was just like shaky, and like tears were welling up, and it was just a very powerful moment. So these powerful moments can come through and it can just feel blissful. So that's definitely the first stage, is intense, heightened connection, and just a joy in your heart that comes with that. And you may start to see signs. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes, by the way. You may start to see signs and synchronicities. And this is a big reoccurring theme with people that are having a spiritual awakening, is you'll be able, through signs and synchronicities, what is it? You're communicating with yourself. You're communicating with the universe, right? So this is what's really cool, is that through your spiritual awakening, you start to develop this communication. It's like you have an open line to the universe, and you're finally picking up the telephone. And it just feels so good to finally pick up that telephone when you feel like you've maybe not your entire life. So that is the high that comes after the awakening, which is quickly followed oftentimes by the confrontation with the shadow self. So the shadow that comes in a spiritual awakening is, you're on this high, you're feeling connected, you're feeling more, yourself than maybe ever before. And then you start to meet all of yourself, and you're seeing all of yourself truly as you are, because we are not all just one side, right? We do have the darkness in us as well as the light. So you start to see, all of the nasty feelings coming up, all of the hurt that you've experienced, because I don't care who you are, what kind of blissful childhood you think you had, everyone, the point of life is to come here to learn. So you have things that need to be healed, right? We experience pain so that we can feel bliss. So everyone has something to work on, no matter who you are. And that's something that can be very comforting in your awakening, as you realize like, oh, it's not just me. Everyone, is kind of in the same boat together, regardless of class or ethnicity or, anything like that separates us in the, illusion of life. So you'll meet your shadow self, is what a lot of people in the spiritual community like to call it. Because it's not darkness, but it is a shadow. It's just the parts of yourself that need healing. It rises to the surface. So you might have anger come to the surface. You might have pain. You might have, jealousy or blah, blah, blah. Like all of these darker feelings come to the surface because they're asking for your attention. They're saying, hey, I was hurt back here and we never really healed on that. So let's go back to it. Let's revisit and let's figure it out, right? So my advice to you, if you're in the shadow period, is to honor these feelings, right? Like if you get angry, don't just go, ah, a spiritual person doesn't get angry. I know I'm better than this, and try and like suppress it and move forward. Like you need to go, okay, like what is, my innocent childlike self trying to get my attention for? Like what am I angry about really? Let's excavate that emotion. Let's get to the reason why I'm acting out, or why I'm, not losing my patience, right? Because what you'll find is it's always coming from something. It's never necessarily what you see is what you get. So you're going to work into the shadow self, and it's hard work, but it's the most healing work you can ever do. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's great to see God and ride this high and be on this rainbow, but if you don't, descend and figure out your demons, they'll always be with you. So yeah, it's a hard time. It can kind of be the dark night of the soul, but there's a reason for it. And you can also feel a lot of anger and resentment towards others, or the world around you, or society, right? Like some people don't have a spiritual awakening until much later in their lives. And they can feel like robbed of an experience. Like, why did I chase money? Or why did I do this? Or, why did I stay in this relationship? Or why did I just not have a relationship with myself in this way before now? And they can, the blame game really starts to come up. You can blame your parents, you can blame your, profession, you can blame your friends, but really, like, you'll eventually come to a place where you'll get that emotion out, and you'll be able to just forgive and move on, because it's just life, right? We live and we learn. And this stage is where people can really blow up their lives. And yes, sometimes it's for the better, right? Sometimes you don't want to be in that job or that relationship or that country, right? You want to go do your own thing. But sometimes, like, it can look like a midlife crisis, for example. Someone can just blow up their life, and, if they're not cognizant, if they're having this awakening, but they don't really know what's going on, they can really veer off into a crazy direction, and later come to regret some of the decisions they made, because they were dealing with all of this hard shadow work coming up. So yeah, if you're going through shadow work, just remember to find your calm, and just get to the source, and just persevere, don't give up. But yeah, so the blame game can only happen for so long. At some point you have to take responsibility, because that's what true growth is, right? And you're taking responsibility for your own happiness. So you'll get through it the quicker you can get to that point of just, you're not the victim, you're responsible for how you feel, and you have the power to get back to that really high place. You just gotta get through this little vision quest that you're on. The next stage is what I've heard, like Sorella Moore in her video said it was the void. Yeah, to me it is like a void. I would call it the in-between. So the in-between is like, a lot of people claim that a spiritual awakening is akin to waking up in the Matrix, like the movie. But the difference is, in the movie, The Matrix, like, he took the red pill, and then he was in this entirely, he physically left where he was, and he was in this entirely different place. But for us, we're still in our everyday life. Like, we're still here. It's just this inner awakening that's happening. So the void, or the in-between, is, how do I exist in this world and the world that I feel that I'm in now? Like, my old life, my new life, my old experiences and emotions and identities, and this new direction I'm going in. How do I, like, you fall in between these worlds at times. So this can look like depression, this can look like anxiety, this can look like loss of identity. This can look like, I don't have a purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't like my old friends because I'm not like, you don't like them, but just I'm not resonating with my old friends anymore. I don't feel connected to them because we're on different paths, but I don't have any friends in this new way to connect to. So you can feel that way with everything, right? Like, you're no longer connecting to your old life, but you don't all of a sudden have this new life in front of you. You have to build it. So you feel very lost in the in-between. And it can take a long time, right? Like, especially if you're the type of person that falls into depression easily, or just, stillness. it can be hard. You can feel like you're just kind of lost and drifting away. So you feel like you have one foot in two worlds and you just don't really know which one is real. A lot of times self-doubt can come into this as well. Like you have all these experiences and then you're like, but wait, is that true? And then your faith will get tested and you might have to go back to shadow work. And it's just like, it's kind of a purgatory when you look at it. Like it's kind of just this in-between, I'm not here, but I'm not there anymore. Where am I going? Who am I? My advice for the in-between is to just try and feel connected. Try to remember that you might have lost your identity, but your new one is forming, and just really focus on that. Focus on what you want to bring in and manifest in your life, and don't fall into the pit. You're in between two worlds, but that means you have the power to create the new one, the next one, a better one, right? So be empowered, don't be stuck. Okay, and that brings me to my next stage, which I classify as the choice. It's the choice to leave purgatory. It's the choice to leave the shadow. It's the choice to step into the light and truly be your authentic self. And it's a full integration of all that healing that you've just gone through. So it's a nice place to be. So at some point, you wrestle with the fear, the self-doubt, the aimlessness until you just decide to put it down. Yeah, so usually you have to make a choice to fully let the universe lead you. So trust is a big part of this. People that don't have a deep innate trust have a hard time relinquishing control to the universe, so they have a hard time following their heart, because I feel like if anyone is still enough, they will be able to hear where, the universe is pointing to you, what you feel in your heart. So yeah, you have to make a choice. You have to listen to it at the end of the day, right? Like we said, it's like picking up a phone. You got to pick up that phone call, and at some point you have to make the choice to follow what you hear. Where's your heart pointing to you towards, and the longer that you prolong it, just the more chaotic your life will be, or just unfulfilling, right? So yeah, this leads me to what a lot of people think is the last stage. I think it's the second to last, and I'll tell you why. So this is the purpose stage. So usually when you make that choice and you just commit to, this new life, you generally have a sense of purpose. For me, because I wanted to be a doctor and then all this happened and I spiraled, my purpose was I want to help people. I want to heal people, right? That's why I'm doing this video. I want to help somebody. And it really can power you through. So usually your purpose is taking into account what gifts, what talents, what abilities you have, right? Like what did God give you that makes you special? And then utilizing that for your highest good and the highest good of others. And I often have people ask me like, okay, well, how do I know that it's my purpose? Like how do I recognize my purpose? And by the way, this doesn't have anything to do with career. Like you could have your career and have a different purpose, or it's the same. We're not talking about careers. We're talking about what you feel like your sole purpose is, right? It's much deeper than that. So what I find is that it's your purpose when it serves your highest good and therefore the highest good of others. And so it's kind of like being equally selfish and selfless at the same time, right? And I think everyone can attest to sometimes when you help someone, like it feels so good that you're like kind of selfishly doing it, right? Like this video, like I'm kind of being selfish because it feels good for me to get this information out. It feels good for me to talk about these kind of topics. I love detoxification. Like I love healing. I love spirituality. So is it selfless or is it selfish? Right? The lines get blurred when your highest purpose is aligned, because all of a sudden, it's a balance point. You're serving yourself and you're serving others, and you've found balance. So if you feel off balance in your life, that's a really good compass to use. Like selfish and selfless love, right? So is it serving myself and is it serving others? Because you'll find if you think your purpose is one thing, but the more that you do that thing, you feel like you're being almost more selfish than selfless. If you feel like you're helping yourself at the cost of others, especially, it will drain you. It will eventually catch up to you because it doesn't feel right in our soul, right? There has to be an equal exchange. So in the purpose realm, use this compass, does it feel good to me, and does it feel good, in a way to give to others? Am I being selfish and selfless at the same time? Because it can be done. It's really cool. And so my last stage, which I'm not there yet, and by the way, it's not like you just graduate and you never return. Like, life's a circle and you just keep going back, right? You'll keep experiencing the bliss and the shadow and the void and then this. And so just keep rolling with it. But generally, you just get better and better, right? So the last stage that I think, when I think about a spiritual awakening, is presence. Because at some point, I think you'll realize that purpose isn't everything. That yes, it's wonderful to have purpose, and yes, it's wonderful to have something that you want to do that day, to help others, to help yourself, or put your talents and gifts and abilities to work. But at the end of the day, you can just be, right? And I feel like it's a being and a oneness and a presence that is just, that's probably where happiness truly lies. Like, yes, I think it's in purpose, but I really think, and when you learn about like Atman and Brahman and Hinduism, and you see this in Buddhism and Taoism, there just seems to be this point where you're no longer on a mission, you're just existing. But because you're so evolved, your existence serves others as much as yourself. Like, it's just this beautiful union point. Perhaps it's enlightenment. I don't know. I'm not there yet. So if I get there, I'll report back. But yeah, so this is something I'm trying to incorporate because clearly I'm going after my purpose. Clearly I feel it in my bones, that what I'm good at, and I'm ready to give that to the world. But at times I do have to slow down and go, you know what? This isn't the highest step yet. Presence, fully integrated, aware presence is the final step. So there's times where I'm trying to be the best mom I can, and the best healer I can, and the best wife, and friend, and all of this. And it can be overwhelming because I'm putting expectations on myself, and I have to slow down. And I have to go, you know what? God created me to just be. And as soon as I kind of get in that space, all of a sudden I'm the perfect mom. All of a sudden I'm the perfect wife. Like, it unifies you and connects you on a really, really good level. So yes, that was kind of long, but I really hope that, you found something from this. If this has resonated with you, comment below. Tell me where you feel like you've, felt what I'm talking about. Tell me where you are, maybe where you're struggling, maybe where you're headed to in your journey. And I wish you, of course, always the best of luck. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you more. I hate goodbyes. Goodbye. Uncut Jams.